In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Esterbrook Estie with Journaler nib. I'll go over the specs, I will do a writing sample, and I'll tell you what I like and don't like about this pen coming up. So this is a Esterbrook fountain pen. Now, before I walk through this particular one, I want to talk about the Esterbrook brand. It is a historically important American pen brand. Back when fountain pens were the tool of the day, many people had Esterbrook pens because they were cheap and they were high quality. Now, most of them were, laminated celluloid pens like this with interchangeable, threaded nibs. Most of them were steel. They did gold nibs as well, and they were just really nice, simple, cheap pens. This was sort of, I don't want to say a Bic, but it was kind of the Bic, but these are a lot nicer than a Bic. But that was sort of, your cheap dollar store pen. So many people use these. They're really great quality pens. Even to this day, they're fantastic, and there are many different types of nibs out there that you can use, and they're threaded, so they're interchangeable. Just really nice, budget pens. So they went out of business years and years ago. Now there is a new Esterbrook brand. It is owned by Kenro Industries, which is also a distributor for a number of other brands, namely Aurora, previously Montegrappa, and more recently Ferris Wheel Press. Now, in my 2025 pen brand ranking video, which I'll link up in the corner, I put Esterbrook in the overhyped category. Now, I don't think that's unfair, but I'm not a huge fan of lots of marketing. But what I will say is that this brand does something that I think is very good for the fountain pen world by having lots of marketing, by having, collaborations with, like, Peanuts is the most recent one. You're bringing new people into the world of fountain pens, and I think that's very valuable. And even though these pens are, a little bit on the pricier side for what you get, I think that's okay. The marketing isn't free, and if it's creating new fountain pen users, I can't really hate on this brand too much. Now, I think one of the big draws to the brand, besides marketing and collaborations, whatever, is the number of options that are available, like with this Estie pen in this tortoise color here. You have two different filling system options. You have a cartridge converter like I have here. You also have a button piston filling system. For the cartridge converter version, it's $195. For the button piston, it's $250. I would recommend the cartridge converter, but if you wanted more ink capacity, the button piston could be a nice option. Now, what's fantastic is all the nib options. So these take threaded number 6 Yovo nibs. Esterbrook also sells an adapter for vintage Esterbrook nibs. So if you have that adapter, you could put something like this Esterbrook 1551 nib onto this pen and use it. That's really cool. There's no other pen brand that does something quite like that. So that's a big selling point right off the bat. You get a brand new, big modern size pen that can now take vintage Esterbrook nibs, which are really good nibs. So right out the gate, that's fantastic. But then if you don't want a vintage Esterbrook nib, you have the standard Yovo number 6 nibs from extra fine to broad to 1.1 millimeter stub. And then you also have 18 karat gold in all those same options. That adds $250 to the price. I personally wouldn't do that, but if you wanted a gold nib, you could absolutely make it happen with Esterbrook branding. So that is nice. And then in addition to that, we have some more specialty nibs. We have a journaler nib, which I have on here, that adds $60 to the price. There is a Fude nib, a scribe nib, a Techo nib, a mini stub, and a needlepoint. That's a lot of options. So if you are a new fountain pen user and you buy one of these pens, you have a lot of different options for changing the pen to make it exactly how you like. this could be your only fountain pen and you wouldn't necessarily feel like you have to go somewhere else. Let's walk through this pen. So we have, a torpedo shape here. There are no finials. They're just sort of, rounded points. They taper down quite a bit. It has a nice proportion to it. This doesn't look like, in my opinion, a $195 pen. It's kind of a lot, for $200, you can start getting into pens with, gold nibs, although less, pens are becoming more and more expensive, so that's becoming less the case. But, you can have a Pilot Vanishing Point, a Lamy 2000. You probably have to go used now, but you could have a Platinum 3776 or some of the entry-level Pilots Custom 74. Now, what I will say is, compared to specifically the Japanese ones, this is not injection molded plastic, so this has a solid feel to it. It is nice in that sense, and I think that the trims look pretty good quality. This isn't stamped metal like you would get on, those Japanese pens. So you're getting some nice build quality here. I believe most of the Esterbrook pens, or maybe all of them, are made in Taiwan or China. The quality of these pens, from what I can tell, is pretty good. I like this really nice, filled gold engraving that says Esterbrook here. I think that looks really good. And then we have a pretty basic looking, simple trim ring there, which is less exciting. I would like to see more trims on this. I think that, I mean, to my mind, adds more to, having the pen feel a bit more premium. Now, in terms of uncapping the pen, let's see how many turns it is. About 1 3/4 with the cap off here. They have this cushion cap closure. This I don't personally like because, right, like you really have to push on it, and capping it, sometimes I'm pushing on it and I'm twisting it. You have to push a bit more than what I'm used to. So sometimes I have to, think to myself, why is this not capping? Now, if this is your only pen, it won't really matter. I will say that this pen does seal very nicely because of that cushion cap closure. So I left this pen for, a week and a half in my desk, and it wrote instantly. So it does work. I do think it is a wear point because it's, a spring in there. So eventually that might not work. I do think it is better if you can just make a regular cap that seals where you don't have to push on it like this. But, this is a good way to get a good seal. And, for people that are new to fountain pens, having that pen not dry out on you is a big deal. So I think this is a good thing here. Now, looking at the nib, this is the Journaler nib from Custom Nib Studio, and they actually brand this, so you can see the Nibmeister's initials there, GS for Gina Salarino. Oh boy, I'm saying the name wrong. But anyway, and then you can see J for Journaler there. That's not something that they put on the Dolce nib, which I believe is the exact same grind as this. Essentially, they take a medium nib here. You can see it's marked M on the side, and they turn it into essentially like a cursive italic. It's very, very forgiving, but you get a little bit of line variation. So it's sort of just, you essentially get a fine nib with some line variation, and it's quite forgiving. It's a really good grind. I wouldn't think to make a grind like this, but in using it, it's a wow, and it does add some flair to your writing. So I really like that. Now, this particular version here is cartridge converter. We do get a branded converter here. We do have a little O-ring here, which I guess helps seal the pen. The threading on this pen is pretty big, and it has a nice feel to it once you push on it. It's very smooth. We do have a trim ring here, and we have a nice, big, comfortable grip section here. And like I said, the nibs are threaded, easy to change out, Jovo number 6 nibs. The pen does post, and it posts very nicely. It balances well in my hand. Yeah, I've had no issues writing with this pen posted. Let's do some measurements here. 148, I would say. Then uncapped, looking at about, I would say 129. Posted, it's going to become quite long, but interestingly, it still kind of works. About 170. And then the grip section, nice size grip section here, 11.5, and then it kind of, to where it tapers before it starts flaring out, I don't know, I'd say 10.9. So pretty minor taper, but it is there for sure. 26 grams, not too heavy. It does have a solid feel though. It doesn't feel like a cheap plastic pen like an old Esterbrook or say like, a Platinum 3776 or Pilot Custom 74. It feels higher quality, more solid than that because it's turned from a solid bar resin. 17 grams, really not heavy, but it does have that solid, I think a premium feel to it without being, overly heavy there. Now let's do some size comparisons here. It's definitely a full size pen. So here it is with a Aurora Optima, definitely longer than that, but similar size number 6 nib. Here it is with a Platinum 3776, so definitely bigger than that. And then let's try Platinum M, or Platinum Pelican M800. Very similar in size. I would say that's maybe the closest here. Because this has more flat tops and this is more pointy, this is the longer pen here. And then pen with a similar shape. Here's a Sailor King of Pen here. So a bit smaller than that, and the nib is certainly smaller. For the writing sample, I'm going to be using a Papermind Tomoe River hardcover notebook. These notebooks are excellent for fountain pens and for Blake's broadcast. Viewers and subscribers, you can get 10% off with code BB10 at checkout. This is the Esterbrook. I actually don't know how you spell Esterbrook. Okay, there we go. Esterbrook Estie. And this is with a journaler nib. And this is Octopus Caramel, I believe. Really like this ink. I do sell it at the Paper Mine. It's one of my favorite light brown inks. It's just a really nice color and just very well behaved. Okay. Yeah, we'll do some fast writing. Zero performance issues. This is a really nice nib. As I said before, this is, the same as like the Dolce nib that were sold with the Montegrappa pens. And I have really zero complaints about it. It's, you're not going to get a huge amount of line variation out of it, such that it adds like a ton of flair, but it is definitely there. And it's just very forgiving. This is something that a first time fountain pen user could use without any issues, where, a typical stub and definitely an italic would be a challenge for people coming from a ballpoint. Whereas this really, even if you turn the pen, it doesn't really cause too much of an issue. So very forgiving, very nice for everyday writing. If you like a fine nib, why not have one with a little extra flair to it if there are no downsides? And there are no downsides here. So, the Custom Nib Studio, they did just a really good job with this grind. And it's nice that it's, only a $60 add-on. So let's try reverse writing. And I guess I forgot to try, let's try some flexibility here. You can push on it a little bit versus no pressure. No pressure, pressure. It's not, I don't think it really makes sense to try to push on this. It's not a nail this nib, but you know, you're not going to get much in the way of line variation. Reverse writing seems to work fine. I don't think you gain too much from it, just a slightly drier writing experience and a little bit less smooth. Okay, so what are my pros and cons for the Esterbrook Estie fountain pen? Well, I really like all the different options that are offered for this pen. You get two different filling system options, and you get, I don't know, over 10 different nib options. You can have 18 karat gold, you can have steel, you can have custom grinds, Fude, journaler, needlepoint, on and on. There's so many options for this. They also make a adapter that will allow you to fit vintage Esterbrook nibs to this pen. So that is really cool. They've created a very cool platform for different nibs, being Yovo number 6 threaded. You can also put nibs from other brands on here and different nib meisters. So they really nailed that. The size of the pen is pretty perfect for me. It's, you know, a full-size pen, number 6 nib. It posts nicely without becoming too back heavy. They really did a good job with this. You do get a very good seal from that push mechanism inside there, and it has a good quality feel to it. It's turned from a solid rod of material here, and you always just get that extra solid feeling that you don't necessarily get from an injection molded plastic pen. Now, in terms of cons, you know, I don't think that this is necessarily the best looking pen. It definitely doesn't have like the most premium appearance, even though the fit and finish of it I do think is actually quite good. Just the design of it looks pretty generic, pretty, I don't know. Yeah, not too exciting. They could have done more with nicer gold plated furniture and just a more interesting shape. So we don't really have that here. The biggest issue though I would say is, you know, the price point, $195. For me personally, the price, you know, if this was $100 pen, this would be very easy to recommend because it feels high quality. You get all those nib options. At 200, you know, I'd be thinking Lamy 2000, Pilot Vanishing Point with, you know, gold nib. Those are really, really nice fountain pens that I think, you know, I would personally rather have than this one. However, it is a nice platform. It's a great place to start. It's not the cheapest place to start, but all that marketing does have a cost, and I don't necessarily feel terrible about paying that for this. But if you're somebody that's maybe a little bit more savvy, I think there are some other options out there that could be nicer, at least in my opinion. But that's pretty much it. Do you guys have this pen? Do you like this pen? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more fountain pen, paper, and ink videos, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, and until next time.